Hi everyone, Cameron Walter here. Interesting times in indoor cricket with three new rules coming in for the upcoming World Cup, two of which are probably not that controversial, but one that certainly is. And what I thought I'd do to get all of the detail on how these changes came about and what the intended impact is, I thought I'd chat to Tony Watkins, the president of the World Indoor Cricket Federation, to get his thoughts on all of that and more. And I spoke to him earlier today. Here's the recording of that interview. Tony Watkins, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Cam.
What I'd like to do is step through the rule changes and hear from you directly on what they mean and what impact they might have on the game. So, firstly, can you talk to the permanency of the changes? I mean, as I understand it, they're being trialled only and then reviewed thereafter. So what's the measure of success? Who will determine that and whether they become part of the rules afterwards?
Yeah, look, I think, Cam, we've been looking for a few years now to try and spice the game up a little bit. A lot of other codes kind of do the same thing. We just felt that this was a huge opportunity for the world game to get the exposure at the very top level with the men's and the women's playing. So we felt it was important that we tried to make the game as exciting as we possibly can. And we felt these rules would have an impact to speed the game up slightly. It's not being done from a perspective of trying to make one country better than another country. It's being done to try and make the game faster, get the viewers more engaged. So that's the main reason why we looked at changing the rules and they're just really for this World Cup that's coming up to have a look at the very top level. As I'm sure everyone understands, at the very top level, the game is slightly different to an in-house game. The in-house game is very different to the international level. So we wanted to make the international game really exciting as best we could. Very similar to what you've got in outdoor cricket with the T20s and the IPL. It's really exciting to watch it. But if I go and play last man standing, I'm not as good as they are, but I still try and emulate what they're doing and do what they're doing. But there's slightly different rules for the average cricketer as opposed to the really top guys.
And so hearing all of that and it's there's some stuff I want to dive in there a little bit later, but again, how will we determine whether or not this has been successful at the World Cup? So what's the measure?
Well, I think the measure for us is the engagement that we get through, and look, we're currently we're looking at some television deals through different places. So the kind of the engagement that we can get from that, whether we're getting really good feedback from the viewers, we're wanting to make it a real spectacle so that people get excited about indoor cricket. So I think that's the measure for us, is to see if we're getting some good feedback from the viewers, that the games flow really well, that there's lots of excitement during the game. It's just felt that the game slowed down, or teams have got too good for the game as it currently stands, and by jazzing it up a little bit means that we'll create some more interest, some more action for everyone to watch.
Okay, well let's step through each of the three rules now. Got a couple of questions about each of them. So starting with the concussion substitute rule, pretty straightforward and I imagine uncontroversial. So if you could explain it for us, a player with a head injury or a concussion can be completely replaced, not as a substitute. So what does that mean? They can do everything?
Yeah, so it means that they can bat and bowl and field depending on when it happens in the game. If they come off and they're ruled out for concussion reasons, and again, we've tried to do it through an independent person that will be at the World Cup. So we realise this can't be done in house. No one has a medical standby person all the way through the time. So this is just for this World Cup, so that we've got a true 8-on-8 playing in the Test match, and someone's not off or doesn't try and stay on to try and help their team out. So we can look after their safety, get them off, get them checked, make sure that they're better before they can come back on again, and not disadvantage the team by them playing with seven with a replacement player that can just field and other players have to bowl an extra over or bat for an extra couple of overs.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Is there any concern or was it discussed at all about the possibility of the rule being gained? So, an underperforming or under pressure player could be subbed out without a genuine injury. I mean, you talked about the independent person. I assume the hope is that they can help mitigate against that.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess, everyone will push the rules to a different extent, and it depends on the individuals. We've put the rules there for everybody to try and put a framework around it that we think is fair for everybody. Doesn't matter what rules you bring in, there will be little loopholes that people will look to change and work on. So we think this is the fairest for everybody, and we hope that everyone uses it in the right spirit and it's used for the safety of the player, not to get an advantage over a different team where I come off. The independent person is really important, because we're hoping that an independent person will be able to go through an HIA test with them to figure out if they should come off or not. And there's no pressure from a coach or their own physio or their own trainer, because the independent person will be doing it. So that's our hope, that it will be independent and that it will work well for everybody.
Yeah, makes sense, Tony. The next rule, the decision review system. So up to 2 incorrect reviews in relation to runouts and stumpings only, I believe. That's interesting.
Yep.
I note it's only operating when it's available. So I suggest that that suggests it's not going to be available on every court. Is that right?
Oh, we believe it will be available on each court, but again, we're playing in Sri Lanka. We've had power cuts before where things have gone out for half an hour. We've been able to get everything else running and going. We need to keep the games running on time, and we understand that. So there might be times where it's not available for whatever reason. So just to cover ourselves, we've just put when it's available, but we are expecting it to be available for all courts during the World Cup. But I want it to be really clear about if there was an issue, we're not going to stop the game because that's not working. We're going to carry on with the game and keep to the schedule that we have. And
Yeah.
bearing in mind that we're asking the top umpires to come to these events and umpire. And if you statistically look at what our top umpires and how they go, they might get 1%, maybe 5% at worst case scenario wrong. They're really good umpires that umpire at this top level. So what it does is it protects our umpires a little bit as well. So the idea behind the rule is the players might be really upset and think that it's definitely out. It goes up and the umpire has a look at it. It takes the sting out of the game against the umpire a little bit by them being able to review the decision. Yep, it's in or it's out. Overturn the decision if it's wrong, and they retain the appeal or the review. And if it isn't, they lose the review and we move on. We will be freezing the clocks when these reviews happen, so no one's losing any time from the player's point of view in terms of we have 42 minutes to get through an innings. So that doesn't count for doing these couple of reviews. And look, if an umpire gets 1 out of the 4 that are reviewed wrong, or 1 out of the 5 that are reviewed wrong, that's generally acceptable. And we're just trying to mitigate some of the what are perceived as the bad decisions.
Yeah, totally. Look, I can't fault that. I think that it will be embraced. But I mean, there are some other impacts, right? You mentioned the time. So I note there's sort of no limit to how many successful reviews you could have. So if an umpire's not having a good game and there are a lot of these reviews and there's 10 seconds to decide, it seems to me like there's potential for that to impact the momentum of sides, but also affect that length. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, we ask our best umpires to come to these events, and we are really we do some training with them before the events. We have some workshops that we work with them on trying to make them the best umpires that they possibly can be. There will still be mistakes. There's human error. I think the DRS just creates a little bit more, I don't know, suspense, I suppose, both for the viewer and both for the players, and give the players an opportunity to have a little bit of a voice around some decisions. If they're making 10 or 15 wrong decisions during a game, I would suggest that we would need to do a lot more training with this umpire moving forward in the tournament. So I can't see this happening, Cameron. Our honest opinion is they might get 1, worst case scenario, 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6 wrong. And that's not going to take, we're adding probably 2 or 3 minutes. At the moment, we're expecting 33, but somewhere between 30 and 36 teams to come to this world event. Because it's the top level, we're kind of looking, at the Masters event, we had an hour and a half per game. We're looking to extend that to either an hour 45 or even 2 hours. which means we can have a bit of a warm-up before the game. We can do some commentary. We can catch up with some players. We can make it a little bit more interactive. Catch up with some coaches before the matches. But it also gives us that little bit of breathing space if a game runs over a little bit longer, because we've had 5 or 6 DRSs that have taken a little bit longer to decide. But again, we're asking the umpires to make a quick decision on the DRS, and not muck around. We don't want to be there 5 minutes looking at frame by frame by frame. This is more to pick up a decision that's he's 3 feet out or 3 feet in, and the umpire's given him out due to other things happening in the game, and he might have missed it, or human error. So it's more around let's get as many decisions as we can right, but we're not going to slow the game down to make it work.
Totally. Look, I've not umpired for a long time, but I think back to the days when I did, and I'm curious about this. Is a logistics question more than anything else. Is the 10 seconds going to be displayed anywhere? Like, is an umpire going to manage that count? And how are they going to do that when they're doing other post-delivery things like putting the score in and watching other things? Who's looking after that 10-second count?
Well, I guess once it's reviewed and you're looking at players to look to the review, the umpire needs to be able to do it. We're going to have some stopwatches with the umpire up in the boxes, or a clock. It probably won't be displayed on the screen, but the players will be able to manage it a little bit because there's a countdown clock on the screens for the innings anyway, so they'll be able to keep an eye on roughly where that 10 seconds is. And look, we've picked 10 seconds because we think that's the right move. It might be less than that, or it might be slightly more than that. We don't want people to go and consult with the coaches on the side and slow the game down completely. We want it to work out that, look, it's a run out, it's happened. You've got 5 to 10 seconds to make a decision, and it's not about slowing the game down. If you do that, you're gonna burn through your 2 reviews pretty quickly when they're wrong, and the game moves on.
Just on your point there, Tony, will the players actually be able to consult with the coach about whether they're going to review something? Or I know these are still being finalised, right? So if that's not clear yet, then sure. But I know that in outdoor, for example, they can't do that. So what's
it's not 100%. Yeah, I guess with indoor it's a lot more confined and close by. So quite often you'll see players look over when it's been trialled in the past. Quite often you'll see players look over at the reserve players or at a designated player on the side that might have a better view than what they had. I don't think that's a problem. The problem that we're trying to stop is someone trying to replay it and then which is what outdoors trying to do as well with their review system, is the guys up on the deck have pretty quick access to replay a run out and could go, go up, go up, go up. Whereas we're not that flash so far. We don't have 60 cameras around the boundary with HDMI and high resolution that we can pick these things up. So I think it's a common sense thing for us that, the 10 seconds, if the coach is involved or people on the sideline are involved, I don't see that being a problem because they have a good view of it as well. They're part of the team. I wouldn't want them to be asking you as the commentator, but anybody else in their own team, I think, is fair enough.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think that's pragmatic too, given the confined space of the game, as you say. Moving on to the third change, and if you believe the commentary on socials, certainly the most controversial. So this one might take a bit of time to step through. The second ball rule, I guess you can call it, pretty fundamental change to the game, as I understand it. To sum it up, you basically can't face 2 dots in a row. And on that second dot, if the batsman misses it and the keeper gloves it and takes the stumps, he's out, whether he's in the crease or not. A couple of other flow-on effects. I think back to the inception of the third ball rule to begin with, it fundamentally changed the game of indoor cricket, and this modification looks like it will do the same. So what's the thinking behind it? Why do we believe that it's necessary to do that? I mean, do you accept that it is a fundamental change? And if so, why do we need it?
Well, look, I don't know whether it's a fundamental change because we're playing the rule now effectively. So we're playing third ball rather than second ball, but we're playing the same rule. So the rule has changed. I guess the change in the rule, which is a fundamental change, I suppose, is the taking the non-striker hesitation or stopping rule out of the game, which if you talk to 95% of the players is the most hated rule in indoor cricket, because it doesn't have an effect on the game itself, and there are times where someone's been called out and they've felt that they've hardly hesitated at all, and by changing it to be a more cut and dry rule with the batsman being out, we felt that was fairer, easier on the umpires as well, so that they're just looking at the action where it's happening in front of them. So if the ball beats the bat, they're making a decision if the keeper's taking the ball cleanly or not, if it's a wide or if it's a no ball, and if they break the stumps at that point. So it's tidying it up. Yes, it's a fundamental change from the third ball in terms of the non-striker versus the striker being called out. But I guess from our perspective and the research that was kind of done, even in the 22s game right through to the men's game, and I think you were about for the Adelaide Tri-Series, which was between New Zealand, South Africa and Australia, the average dot balls in those games were somewhere between 40 and 52 per innings. In some of those games, and so it felt that indoor cricket is a fast game. We want action all the time. A little bit like outdoors, gone from 5-day tests down to 50 overs, now down to 20 overs, and they're introducing a 10-over game now. People want action, and people want something that kind of they can see action all the time. We as a board can't kind of change how indoor cricket is played in each country in terms of we don't control the rents, we don't control what they can do in their centres. We just want to make the game as exciting as we possibly can so that people want to get back involved, want to come and play cricket at indoor cricket centres. So making these changes will make the game faster, we believe, more action, more engagement with the viewers, which is what we're after, to try and build the game right from the grassroots level up right to the top level.
I take your point around the non-striker rule. Like, I've lost count of the amount of times I've had to explain that rule, in person, let alone on commentary. But could we not have made that change without changing it to, the second ball rather than third ball? Would that not have solved that problem? And I guess the second part of that question is, I don't think that, I haven't ever really sort of heard any discussion of indoor cricket not being exciting. I mean, yes, there are blowout games, sure, and in any sport, when the results are lopsided result, that's going to be the case. But third ball, I think there's been an argument, and quite a strong one, that when it came in, it established a real balance between bat and ball, and that the close games were always still exciting. So, my fear, and based on what I'm saying, is that this might shift this, in favour of ball rather than to bat. But to what extent is it really necessary to make the game more exciting? That's sort of what I want to tease out.
Yeah, I guess for us, and the way that we looked at it is, and look, I've played from the 80s through and had a bit of a break, but played a lot of indoor cricket, and we all say how exciting it was back in the day, and it was more tippany back in the day, and then we went through this reign where the good batsman just stood there and flogged the ball against the side nets and ran on the last ball, and then the 3-ball rule came in to change that as well. I guess, and time will only tell, but all of these rules that have kind of been proposed have been trialled all around the world, not just at the higher levels. They've been trialled at centres. There's been other rules where you get 12 runs for hitting the back net. You get a free pizza at different centres if you hit a box up in the top left-hand corner. So there's a lot of these rules have been kind of tested in-house. For us, we're just trying to create a really fast, dynamic game that indoor cricket has been known for a long time, and that's really slowed down in the last few years. And don't get me wrong, I think that the cricketers have got better and better.
Is it the view of the WICF board then that cricket is not that fast-paced, exciting game right now prior to these changes? You refer to it slowing down. You're saying that we've got to get it back there. Is that the position?
Yeah, I think, we've looked at changing the ball. We've looked at, there's been a number of things we've looked to kind of bring the game into a little bit more excitement. In those Adelaide tests, I think the last test New Zealand played Australia, which was the final, I think there were 5 wickets in the whole match. 1 wicket when Australia batted, and I think there were 4 wickets when New Zealand batted. And I remember the most exciting games, and I've played in state champs in Australia where we've played games that have been 30 versus 40 or 32 versus 34. A lot of wickets, a lot of excitement all the time, lots of action happening all the time. You look at the IPL, everyone's tuning in to watch a 14-year-old kid hit the ball out of the park, and it's amazing to watch. They're just looking for action. It blows me away that, and it's a little bit about today's society, I suppose, but you even watch those IPL matches on TV and they pan around the crowd and half the people are watching stuff on their own phones. So trying to get people's attention span to watch a whole game and be involved for the whole time is tricky for all sports, not just indoor cricket. It's all sports that are looking for ways to get that engagement from the viewers and get them back involved with the game. And I'd argue I love Test cricket, outdoor cricket, and back when I was younger, I could watch 5 days without a problem. I don't have the time to watch 5 days now, but I'll watch the highlights and I'll pick times that I'll watch. I'd argue that I don't necessarily have the time to watch a 4-hour T20 game as well at times, but I'll watch some highlights and I'll watch some bits that kind of happen with that. So we're really trying to, bring the indoor cricket game to the next level, I suppose, from a viewer's point of view. And our hope, and we haven't secured it yet, but our hope is to get it back on television again to really get some profile for the sport. And the best way is to make it an action-packed sport, which doesn't always suit the purists, and I understand that.
Well, yeah, thanks, Tony. I guess the questions that come to mind on the back of all of that is the World Cup the right time to see those rules for the first time at an elite level? I take your point that, lots of different rules have been trialled in different levels, but not these rules, and certainly not, at least from an Australian point of view, I can't speak to the rest of the world, haven't been trialled at a national level. So is the World Cup the right place to do it? And particularly when some of the competing nations will not have had an opportunity to play those rules at their national or selection tournament.
Yeah, and I guess that's up to each country on how they do that. We believe that each country will have enough opportunity. A number of countries have training camps where they'll have an opportunity to train these rules that don't have a nationals. That's really only one country. Everybody else will have an opportunity to play these rules before then. I guess the feedback around it, and in all fairness, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, or anybody else, the rules are kind of made 6 months out before the tournament. Everyone's on the same playing field. One country hasn't trialled it before another country. This is what the rules are. We all get the same playing field. We don't get to say, I like this rule from this country's point of view. I want that rule from that country's point of view. And we try and stitch the game together from a point of view of, oh, this is better for my country, or this is better for my country. What we've tried to do is say, what's going to be best for the game and how can we improve the game? And we think this will make a great improvement to the game. Now, Cameron, it might not. We might have egg on our face at the end of the tournament, or in 3 years' time, we might be saying, "Wow, that's the best thing we did. Can't believe we didn't do it sooner." Which has kind of happened with, and I'm showing my age now, which everyone knows I'm old, but we went from 8 balls to 6 balls, and there was a huge amount of pushback, an enormous amount of pushback around that. No one talks about that anymore. No one's bothered about it. No one's interested in it. We've changed other rules along the way that we kind of haven't done in this democratic way. Like, we've changed those rules and brought them in. This way, we've gone to all the countries and said, this is what we want to do from the very top game to make it an exciting game. Everyone has the same opportunity to trial them in their own provincials or their own state champs or their own whatever training camps or however it is 6 months out. and let's give it a go. And that's all we're asking them to do is give it a go. And we think it will be exciting. We could be proved completely wrong, Cam. The data I have and the data that I've seen is that we think it will work very well. But, let's wait and see.
Okay. And I guess some of the other changes that were proposed sort of reveal the thinking, I guess the extent to which the WICF is prepared to take steps to achieve some of the things you've outlined. So, a greater running distance for the batters, a change to the amount of runs for dismissals, so -3 for everything other than bowled, double plays and the free hit rule. So, you made the point about the 8-ball to 6-ball change. In my mind, that made indoor cricket more like outdoor cricket. So that's an example of how it made it easier for people to play both formats. Is there any concern that adding sort of these tweaks around the edges, second ball, double plays, things like that, actually makes the game so much more different than outdoor and make it less likely for players to cross over?
I don't think so, because I think the fundamental part about indoor versus outdoor, you still need the skills with a bat and you still need the skills with a ball. I would argue that indoor have the greatest fielders in the world in terms of their ability, both indoors and outdoors. And we have a prime example of, I think, somebody that revolutionised some of the fielding for New Zealand outdoors in Chris Harris, and that 90% of his skills were learned indoors. A lot of that's kind of disappeared, I think, a little bit over. It's died down a lot. There's not as much skill or not as many outs taken in the field as there has been in the past. I've seen some amazing skills when people have blocked the ball and people have kept the ball off the net and slapped it. We are a different game to outdoor, but there are some definite crossover skills. We're a different game to all sports, and there's crossover skills in a number of different sports. I'd say there's some crossover skills from outdoor to softball or baseball. It's a hand-eye coordination, it's throwing the ball, it's having those tight skills that you need to play any sport that you pick, and particularly a fast-paced sport. So I think, and look, speaking to New Zealand outdoor many years ago, when we kind of got a memorandum of understanding between indoor and outdoor, they credit indoor with a massive change for outdoor, with the change up that came in. It came in an indoor a little bit first, and people practice it indoor, bowling change ups, slower bounces, balls out of the back of the hand, all of those things. A lot of those things came from indoor that have kind of now morphed across into the outdoor game. So I think we've still got a lot to offer the outdoor game. And I think this, at the top level, this will lift the skills of the players to actually be more able to transfer across into the outdoor game.
What about the viewer? I, for example, when I'm commentating on a game, I'll see new viewers come in and say, "What am I looking at? What is this?" Right? With rules like this, does it make it harder for a new or a casual fan to follow?
We're hoping it doesn't. We're hoping it's pretty similar to what it is now. It's the strike 2 versus strike 3 rule, which I don't think there's that much difference between that. I think the clearing up of the hesitation, I think making the striker the responsible person for the second ball in this case, rather than the non-striker responsible for it, I think that tidies it up and makes it a lot easier for the commentators to actually say what's happening. So I think it simplifies that rule in particular. I think the other rules are also really good for the viewer, because they'll get to watch some replays, get to have a look at what's happening, and be more involved. Obviously the HIA is a pure safety for the players and looking after them. So that one's not going to make a huge difference to the viewer. But our hope is that the games become really exciting. I've watched games, and I'm sure you've watched games where teams have got 6 runs in front with 3 balls to go or 2 balls to go, and they've just blocked it out. Well, that's going to be heightened and a lot harder to do now, because you've got 2 balls to go. You've got to run one of those balls, so you can't just block out the last 2 balls. So hopefully there'll be some more exciting ends to games and some real push towards the end of the game that the viewer will get excited, because there's going to be action for all 16 overs, not just towards the back end of the game, which has happened a lot in a lot of our games. And I can talk about some of our national games where, we had a final, I think last year, where it was 105 to 99. Not many outs in the game, but it was exciting for the last couple of overs because it was getting close, and there was an opportunity for both teams to win. We think it'll be exciting all the way through, and that's our hope, that it will be exciting all the way through the match.
Okay, and I guess one final question. If you could sit down and have a one-on-one sort of conversation with all of our sort of existing elite players, the men and women that have played for their country for a number of years under a different set of rules, that are concerned about these changes and what it means for them, what it means for the tournament. If you had a 30-second elevator pitch to them to get them on board, what would that be?
Well, look, I think, Cam, I think the game is a really exciting game anyway, and it's always been an exciting game. I think the players that adapt to these rules and play well under these rules, I don't think it's going to be hard for them to kind of adjust to these rules. I don't think it's a major change. I think if we brought in some of the other rules that you've talked about with double plays and with maybe slightly less runs for different outs, yep, that could have been a lot more tricky for some of these elite players. But I would say that the rules that we've kind of changed here, I think will make the game more exciting and will push those players that are playing at that elite level. And our hope is that it makes the game better and that they embrace that. And they put their best foot forward at this World Cup, because we think it'll be one of the most exciting World Cups we've held for many years, not only because slight change in the rules, but also we've got so many more teams now at this top level, where the game is now taking off. The beauty about the game at the top level is it is taking off and it is getting bigger. And the last 3 years have shown some amazing growth at the top level of the sport. We're hoping that now feeds back into the bottom level of the sport, with the centre owners getting more people turning up. Because without the bricks and mortar, we don't have a game. And we realise that. And our hope from the WICF is that we make the game so exciting that Joe Bloggs that tunes in that hasn't seen it before thinks, I'd love to go and have a go at that. Where do I do it? How do I do it? And gets involved in the game and brings 2 or 3 mates along to a centre, and all of a sudden there's another team playing. And the game grows from the grassroots up. So that's our hope, is that the players can embrace it for what it is to try and make the game more exciting, to try and encourage more players at the bottom level to come and get involved in the game. Because that's our hope, because we think the game can grow, and if it takes off in India and takes off in places like that in the Asian countries, it'll be an amazing sport to be watching on TV in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, Tony, it's been great to get sort of your thoughts directly on sort of the genesis of these changes and what they mean, and that of the WICF board. So thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Cam.
So there you have it, folks, straight from Tony Watkins, the president of the World Indoor Cricket Federation. It'll be fascinating World Cup with those changes coming in. Don't forget, that's from the 27th of September through to the 4th of October in Sri Lanka. Aren't we all looking forward to that? Hope to see you there.